All right, let's see if this is going to work. Okay, I think we are streaming live on video. Hi, everyone. Thank you for your patience. This is my first time doing this, so, you know, just go with me, okay? I'm just going to give it a few seconds to get started. Okay, and we are live. All right, so let's get this show on the road. I'm going to switch to a presentation mode, but before I do, I just would like you all to notice Max working from home. He's winning at it. He's also ignoring you. Okay, so I'm going to share my screen so I can share some resources with everyone. And we'll open it up for questions at the end. But if you do have questions, type them into the chat if you're on Zoom, or if you are on Facebook watching this live, type it into the comments and I will try to look at it. All right, so today we are going to talk about how to stay on track while working from home, how to get focused and make the most out of the time that you have. So I feel like a lot of people right now are, anyone who can work from home is working from home right now, and many of us haven't done it before, and it can definitely present a whole different set of challenges. So here's what I want to cover in this session. So we're going to talk about setting boundaries when working from home and how to communicate those boundaries during ambiguous times. We're going to talk about how to adapt the principles of time blocking to #GetStuffDone. And we're going to talk about establishing a personal email policy to keep you out of your inboxes and into your work. Okay, so why should you listen to me? So my name is Annie Flanzraich. I'm the owner of Flanzraich. It's a Reno-based business that offers content services, including writing, editing, and strategy, and since 2016. When I first started Flanzraich, I ran the business from my home for the first few years before I found my new home at the Reno Collective. So I have experience working from home for those first few years, but I actually spent a lot of the last quarter of 2019. I was sick, so I had to work from home, and I also didn't have a lot of mobility. So I kind of had to self-quarantine. So this is very fresh and very recent. And so I want to share with you guys what I learned during that time to help you make your life better. Wave at the screen if you can hear me. Okay, cool. Just checking. All right, so the first thing we're going to talk about is boundaries. Boundaries are super important in life, but they are especially important when you're working from home. So what are boundaries? Pretty basically, boundaries are limits that you set regarding how you want to be treated and what types of interactions you are willing to accept from others. So this is a foundational thing for the two other tips that I'm going to talk about, especially when we talk about email habits and your own personal email policy. So why are boundaries important when we're working from home? First of all, boundaries set clear expectations for you and the people around you. I know we've all been in a situation where, you know, someone has scheduled a meeting at a time that you're like, why would you schedule it then? I'm not available. Or maybe they keep calling you during dinner time or lunchtime while you're working from home. When you set boundaries ahead of time and you're clear about them, it's hopefully easier for someone else to anticipate what is going on in your life while you're working from home. The other thing about boundaries is right now, home, we kind of go, we're able to put ourselves into a physical location that creates a certain set of expectations and boundaries while we are there. But when we're working from home, those don't exist anymore. So it's really important to create those boundaries in their place. Boundaries also allow you to take responsibility for you and your actions. So once you know that you've been clear with everyone about how you want to be treated and how you would like to work, it's, you know what you need to live up to on your part of the deal. So boundaries are a two-way street. Oh, there's a flashing. My voice is crackly. Okay, that's a good suggestion. Hold on, guys.
I think it's the internet. I think it's the bandwidth. Maybe more people are on or something.
All right. Well, we're gonna try. I'm gonna try something else. I'm gonna stop your video if you have video going. Perfect. All right, let's see if that helps. If it doesn't, that chat was great. So just chat me again. All right, so we're going back. Boundaries also help you to avoid feeling like you've been taken advantage of or treated unfairly. So sorry guys, again, this is give me 1 second, y'all.
Hey, Annie.
Mm-hmm.
There are a bunch of people in the other meeting room still. I don't know if you know that. Like
Which other meeting?
The first meeting that you guys sent out. The first meeting link. Let me text it to you. Hold on a sec.
Yeah, I don't think I can do 2 meetings at once.
No, you can't, but we just need to let those people know that they need to come over here because maybe they didn't get the updated version.
Oh,
This is Dave. I'm going to log out and I'll go do that.
okay. Thanks, Dave.
And your audio is still choppy, Annie. But Dave was clear. I don't know why.
All right, guys, can we take a 5-second pause? I don't want to waste anyone's time, but I'm gonna try and do something a little different. Give me 1 moment.
You might want to restart or something.
Yep, hold on. Tracy. Okay, hopefully this is a little bit better. I'm closer to the source of the internet. So let me know if it works a little better or not. Nickley, you're hilarious.
I think it sounds better.
All right, so I'm gonna stay down here.
Yeah, what'd you do?
I moved closer to the router.
Yeah, that's better.
All right, so I think we have a bunch of people joining us. Oh, thanks, Krista. I think we have a bunch of people joining us from the other chat room, perhaps. So
yeah, they're merging us all over right now. So people are trying to click that link. There was a good about 20, 30 people on there.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah.
So then
it might take a little bit.
Yeah. So I'm going to start from the beginning, actually. We'll just hang out here a little bit.
Sweet.
Grace made a really good point. If you can turn off your video, It might help with all these people in a room. So not that I don't want to see your pretty faces.
Oh, too bad. I shaved for you.
Oh, shucks. I just feel so special. Pat, I still see your face. I'm gonna. All right, thanks everyone for joining. Like I feel, bam. All right. Okay. All right, and we're also on Facebook Live too at the same time. So, all right. Someone who was in the other room, does it look like most people have moved over? All right, if you're coming over from the other room, this is in fact the correct room. If you're watching us on Facebook Live, you are seeing us do this in real time. So thank you for your patience.
Hi, Annie.
Hi there. All right,
All
we're
right.
asking everyone to mute their volume just for now. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that. And if you are in here, and if you can please turn off your video, that is very helpful as well. Okay. All right, I'm gonna get started again unless there are objections and not everyone has left the other room. Going once. Going twice. Okay, sold. Okay, we're starting at the beginning. Hello, welcome to this NCET live webinar, which is titled Staying on Track While Working from Home. Hi, my name is Annie Flanzraich. I will be your guide for the next, not too long, because I know everyone is busy and has a lot to do today. Okay, so I'm gonna get started by sharing my screen. I have a presentation to share some tools and we'll get going. And if you want to message me, use the chat function. It'll give me a notification that you're trying to do that. Okay, so what we're going to talk about today is 3 key points that will help you stay on track while working from home. The first is setting boundaries when you work from home and how to communicate those boundaries during ambiguous times. How to adapt the principles of time blocking to get stuff done, and how to establish a personal email policy to keep you out of your inboxes and into your work. So, hi again, my name is Annie Flanzraich. I'm the owner of Flanzraich, which is a Reno-based business that offers content services, including writing and editing and strategy. I started the business in 2016, and when I did, I ran it from my home for the first few years before moving into the Reno Collective, which I love. And recently I spent pretty much all of the last quarter of 2019 working from home, and I was sick, so I didn't have a lot of mobility. So I stayed home too. So it kind of was a trial run for what we're doing right now. So I wanna take everything that I've learned and share it with you in hopes that it'll help. So the first thing that we're gonna talk about is boundaries and why they're important to working from home. So what are boundaries? Boundaries are basically limits that you set regarding how you want to be treated and what types of interactions you are willing to accept from other people. You may have heard the word boundaries in terms of, personal relationships or, You may have heard them from Instagram therapists that are out there, but they also apply to our workspaces as well. So why are boundaries really important when we work from home? So the first thing I want to say is that when we go into an office, it creates a set of boundaries already for us. We're going into a new physical location. Everyone is seeing themselves in that location, and there's a shared set of expectations that we all operate under. But when we are working from home, we've lost that experience. So we need to reset boundaries so that we and others understand how to work from home together. So they're really important because they set clear expectations for you and the people around you. And because you have those clear expectations, you know what you're responsible for on your end, and you know what you need, how, and what actions you need to take. And in turn, it can also help others know what you are responsible for. And that can avoid a lot of feelings of maybe people feeling like they are being taken advantage of, or that something's unfair at this time. So really the whole point here is the more clarity we can give to our working relationships while we work from home, and also our personal and professional relationships, the better off we'll be. I should also say that, I know that my work from home experience is different from other people who may be working from home with kids. I work for myself, so my experience is different from other people who may have a direct supervisor. So what I'm trying to present here is more of a loose set of guidelines that you can adapt for your own personal use. Okay, so what kind of boundaries are helpful during working from home? So the first is, your physical boundaries, thinking about what do you need from your environment. Can you create a boundary of, I work at my kitchen table, I don't work from my couch because when I do, it makes my back hurt and I feel unproductive. Can you make a physical boundary of, I do work in this room and I leave work in this room? One of the things that happens when you work from home is you feel like, because work is so accessible, you can work any time of the day. And if you're like me and a little bit of a workaholic, you will work all day. Or you may procrastinate a lot and say, oh, I'll do that after dinner, or I'll do that after I do the laundry, or I'll get to that later. And before you know it, later is 11 o'clock at night. So setting those physical boundaries of where work takes place can help you adjust. Another boundary is time and energy. So it's unrealistic to think that we are going to be able to work in the same way from home that we were able to work in our offices, especially if you're working from home with kids or people who are dependent on you. Your time is going to be divided, your energy is going to be divided. So rather than trying to fight that, it's important to recognize what are the times of the day and that your energy is high, and how do you protect that time with boundaries, versus what are the times of day where like work isn't going to get done because it's just not going to happen, and how do you communicate that to the people who are depending on you, and how do you create a schedule so that you're not saving work that needs to be done for those less than optimal time zones. The fourth kind of boundary to talk about are emotional boundaries, right? So I feel like a lot of us were having great conversations online and in phone calls about connecting, but sometimes you may feel a little bit raw because you've been reading a lot of news or this virus is getting close to home. So, setting internally, what are the topics that you feel okay with discussing and what's off limits right now? And thinking through, what would you say if someone brought up one of those off topics? How could you kindly say, I'm not really in a place to have that conversation, because internally, if you do, it's going to drag you down for the rest of the day. It's going to zap your energy, and your energy is a really precious commodity right now. And then the fourth boundary is your mental health, right? How can you support your mental health right now? And is that involves, how you're using social media, how you're watching the news, and also how can you empower others to help themselves and yourself? So those are four kind of boundaries that you can think about setting during this time. So here's some examples of what those boundaries look like when you put them in place. So a physical boundary could be, I choose to work from a specific place in my home that is designated as my workspace. Time could be, I establish working hours with my supervisor, colleagues, and clients. So no man or woman is an island, even during these times. So when you're setting these boundaries, especially when you work with people, it's really important to have transparent conversations when you can, so they don't seem to come out of left field. An example of an energy boundary might be, when possible, I monitor my energy levels and work in ways that maximize them. Like, I personally know that right now is normally when I get a serious energy slump. So normally I wouldn't try to do this time of the day, but that is what it is. We'll talk about staying true to your boundaries in a little bit. Emotional, I engage in deep conversations when appropriate. So setting that boundary of when you're ready to have those conversations that may trigger feelings for you. Mental, I avoid mindless scrolling. So these are all ways that you can set boundaries for yourself. And the setting of the boundaries is something that you would do off of this call. And just really think about what are the important limits that you need to put in place right now to protect yourself. When I run my business, I like to think of myself as the asset, and I need to protect the asset because otherwise my business doesn't work. So how do you set boundaries? 4 steps. First, establish your boundaries. Write down on a sheet of paper or a sticky note or a phone note or whatever works for you, what is okay and what is not okay right now. Think through these different areas of where you can establish boundaries. The next thing you want to do is communicate your boundaries. So be clear and specific when you tell people who need to know, such as your partner, your boss, or your colleague, or your clients. And then really try to honor your boundaries. You set them for a reason, and you set them while you were in hopefully in a clear state of mind, not when you were feeling maybe angry or stressed out. So honor them when you can. Of course, we all, need to be flexible at this time and all other times, but it's up to you to decide when you're being flexible and when you are dismissing something that you said was important. And number 4 is to encourage others to do the same. If we're all honest about what our boundaries are right now when we're working from home, it's healthier for everyone involved. And so encourage people who are around you to do the same thing. All right, so that's boundaries. Number 2 is time blocking. So this is a little bit more tactical. So what is time blocking? Time blocking is a time management method where you divide your day into blocks of time. So how can time blocking help you when you work from home? So time blocking is especially useful for people who are juggling many different projects and responsibilities. Oh, thank you for muting that. People who are spending too much time in reactive mode, responding to emails and messages. And I think the reality is, especially for individuals, but a lot of us are in reactive mode. We're dealing with triage, we're dealing with emergency communication. So time blocking, I'm going to give a caveat that sometimes it's not possible, but when it is possible, it really can be a tool to help you make the most of the time that you have. Time blocking helps people who find if their day is chopped up by meetings or Zooms. And time blocking can help people who are battling constant interruptions throughout the day. So in short, pretty much all of us right now, I don't know anyone who doesn't feel this way. So there are a couple of methods to time blocking. I'm going to share 3 of them, and then I'm going to share my favorite method. So your first way of time blocking is called task batching. So one thing to know is that every time you switch from one task to another, it takes about 15 minutes for your brain to refocus. And that goes for even, switching between windows on your computer can cause that same lag. So when you group similar tasks together, you reduce that lag and you can get more done in the same amount of time. So rather than working on all the things related to a project, like in my world, I do a lot of blog writing, right? So I have the research phase, I have the writing phase, I have the editing phase, I have the, getting it ready to publish phase. Rather than trying to do all of those in a linear fashion, I might say today, I'm just going to work on writing 2 or 3 blogs. And then I'm going to save the photo finding for another time when I can do that in a batch. So that's what task batching is. So some examples of task batching are email, social media, professional development, networking, writing, coding, designing. Task batching is extremely helpful when it comes to email, and we'll talk about email more towards the end of this presentation. So the next way of time blocking is something called day theming. And this is like task batching on steroids. So day theming is when you can see here, you literally take a day and you say, today, everything I'm going to do is going to be related to this specific task. This can work really well for leaders, for entrepreneurs, for freelancers, and others who can work a bit more independently. But it may have limitations when you're working on a team, and it also definitely has limitations when you're working in a, you need to be in a responsive environment. So day theming is not a tool that I usually use, but I know that some people find it useful. Another way of time blocking is using the Pomodoro technique. So the Pomodoro technique is literally named for the tomato-shaped kitchen timer that the creator used to track his work cycles. It was shaped like a tomato, and he was Italian, and Pomodoro in Italian is tomato. So basically what you do with the Pomodoro method is you break down the workday into shorter intervals with breaks in between, with the idea of you focus all your intention on a specific task. Usually your work intervals are 25 minutes. They can go anywhere up to 55 minutes, or they can be as short as 5 to 10 minutes. But the goal is that it really forces you to focus on one task at a time. And if you're one of the people who likes to check things off on a list, it can make you feel super accomplished by the time you're done. My favorite method of time blocking is using a tool called work cycles, which I have to give a big thank you to Colin Loretz at the Reno Collective for introducing me to this tool. But this is a tool that really has helped me work much more efficiently. There's a link to a spreadsheet in this presentation, and I'm going to show you guys where to download the presentation when we're done. So, but I'm going to share kind of what the spreadsheet looks like so you can see how it might help you. Oh, hi, it's my face again. Okay, hold on. Okay, so the link in the presentation will bring you to a place where you can download your own copy of this spreadsheet. But basically what you do with work cycles is you spend, so your first step is to prepare. I've been doing work cycles for, I think, a little bit over, I think close to at least a year. And usually this prepare portion takes me maybe a minute, and setting up my day takes me maybe 3 minutes. So this isn't a super time consuming thing to do. So you start out by saying, okay, I'm going to prepare, and it asks you these 6 key questions. What are you trying to accomplish? Why is it important and valuable? And how will I know it's complete? So there you're really trying to get your mindset straight and trying to connect the achievement of the task with something that feels tangible and valuable. The 4th question, any risks or hazards? So procrastination, distractions, and if you can identify them, like maybe you say, oh, I think that I'm on this group chat with my friends and it's not super related to work, but I know that my phone's just going to be blowing up. Well, if you know that that's a potential distraction, maybe you put your phone on do not disturb for the 25 minutes while you're working on this specific task. So you go through all these questions, and then the next thing you do is you set what time you want the cycle to begin, how long you want the cycle to be, and how many minutes you get in between each break. So now that you're all prepared, then you go to the work section. And that's when you start to plan through each cycle. So you can see here that each cycle starts at a certain time. So I could do 5 25-minute cycles between 1 and 3:20 p.m. And so in each of these plan areas, you put the specific goal that you're trying to accomplish, how you're going to get started. So it can be something as simple as I'm going to open up the document, or I'm going to click reply on the email. Identify the hazards, and it also has places for tracking your energy over time. After you've completed your whole day, you go to the debrief, and it'll show you a little chart of how you work during the day, and it'll give you a place to reflect. And reflection is really important, especially when you're working under stress, because it helps you feel accomplished, and it helps you move forward the next day with taking that feeling of accomplishment with you. So that is how to use work cycles. All right, final point of this conversation is about, I call it creating an internal email policy. So what is a personal email policy? So a personal email policy is a set of boundaries, there's that word again, that you create around when and how you will check and respond to email. You can adapt this for other forms of communication, such as Slack or text or Microsoft Teams. I'm going to use email because I think it's a good place to start. So why is a personal email policy important? Because emails suck. I think you guys are laughing right now. I can't see your faces. I hope that you are, but they really do. Adobe sure like how much expertise you could build in that time, but then I stopped. But anyway, my point is that emails, when we go back to that idea of, when you get distracted from a task, it takes you 15 minutes for your brain to realign with what you're doing. Sorry, 1 second. Oh, cool. Okay. If your brain takes 15 minutes to realign with what you're doing, every time you click over to check your inbox, you're forcing it to reset. So, and again, I know that, but here's the important thing. You can't stop the emails from coming. And the reality is again, a lot of us are maybe in a crisis position right now. A lot of us are in a rapid response position. Obviously, in those positions, we're flexible. Our email policy changes during those times. But having something in place gives you a baseline that you can go back to when you need it to get more things done. Okay, so what should your personal email policy include? It's pretty simple. Include when you check your emails, when you respond to your emails, and how people can connect with you when it's legitimately urgent, because there are times when it's like really urgent, right? So here's a few tools that you can use. So the whole goal of having an email policy is to get out of a place where you have your email window open 24 hours. I know some people use their emails as a task manager, and if that works for you and if you like it, I'm not telling you not to do it. But if you're in a spot where you're like, I hate my inbox and it's the bane of my existence, these are tools that you can use. So there's a couple of links here. One of them is inboxwhenready.org and Boomerang Gmail. These are both plugins that you can use with your email server, and they basically will hide incoming emails in a folder where you have to like dig to go search for them until they release at a specific time and day. The other tool is something called Yesterbox. So this is a method that Tony Hsieh came out with way back in 2012. And if you click that link, when you get this presentation, it's his manifesto on it. But the basic idea is that if we address emails as they come in every day, all day, it feels like an endless stream and it's very frustrating. But if you put an artificial time on it, like yesterday, you can get through an entire inbox and feel like it's done. So the idea is that you treat yesterday's email as a finite list, and then today's email becomes tomorrow's finite list. So personally, I use a combination of all of these tools, and I spell them out pretty clearly in my email signature. So if you've ever gotten an email from me, you probably see this at the bottom, but this is how I set my boundaries, and then I communicate them clearly to help others. So you can see that, first thing I say is if you need to reach me ASAP, you can text or call me on my cell phone. I don't think I've ever had someone say they haven't been able to get a hold of me when they've needed to. And then I just kind of explain what I'm doing, to stay focused and produce high quality work. I use Tony Hsieh's Yesterbox method with inbox pause from Boomerang. And then here's where I tell them, I check my email once a day, usually in the morning, Monday through Friday. I respond to emails within 72 hours of receipt. When I'm not checking my email, I'm working on kick-ass content for clients I love. So I really, I want to pleasantly say, this is why I'm not responding right away. And then I leave a little note that If you need to schedule or reschedule an appointment, please email Brooke, my virtual assistant. Big shout out to Brooke, she's amazing. And then at the end, I just say, you know, I'll email you back soon with a thoughtful and timely response. So in terms of setting boundaries, I've done the first 3 things that I told you to do when you're setting boundaries. So I establish them, I communicate them. I try to do my best at honoring them. I will be totally honest with you guys. The past few weeks have been really crazy, and I've definitely been in a situation where I am, you know, communicating really frequently with clients and monitoring my inbox to make sure I don't miss something. But I know why I'm doing that. And as far as number 4, the cool thing I think about setting boundaries is after people have seen my email signature, I've heard back from them saying, hey, seeing that empowered me to create my own email signature, or it started a conversation in our department about if we could do something similar. So I think as long as you are understanding and nice about it, people really like to see when someone else sets boundaries, because it empowers them to do that also. Okay, so the bottom line is, you know, you do what you can to get out of your inbox, but there's not a one-size-fits-all solution, and everyone has different things that they are dealing with right now and different challenges. But the reality is that if you don't do anything, you're going to be trapped in this endless cycle of email. So if you can get out of it, then you're going to free yourself up. And the reason it's super relevant to working from home is I think it's Pareto's principle that says that work expands to the time that we give it. So without boundaries and without all these tools in place when you work from home, your work will expand to infinite. And that's why at the end of the day, you may feel really tired or completely unaccomplished, or like you just didn't get enough done. But if you can put some of these tools in place to help you prioritize, you may feel more effective. All right, I'm going to stop the share and open up for questions. So if you want to unmute yourself, you have permission to unmute yourself right now.
I sent you something, Annie.
Oh, is there a question though?
Yeah, well, I said people don't read. I love your comment, and that's what I try to do with email. I try not to look at it as I'm trying to work, but people expect you to respond right away, such as people like Dave Archer.
Oh,
But I love Dave. I love Dave.
I think, you know, that goes back to the idea of honoring your boundaries and trying really hard. And also, if you feel like someone keeps pushing up against them, and it's not Dave, but if someone keeps pushing up against them, you know, there's a place to have a conversation to say, you know, this is what I'm trying to do to make the most out of the time that I have to work. And I feel like there's something that's missing in our communication, because I don't feel like you're understanding that. So, you know, being able to have that conversation. Deb A asks, do I ever use my auto reply with the message on your email signature? So for a little bit of time, there's a functionality on Boomerang that allows you to auto send out emails with that. And I had that on for like a week, and it sent auto replies to everyone. And I thought it was really annoying. So I stopped doing it. I have definitely seen people use that function really well though. Jeremy Liu, a photographer in town, has a great auto response that you get if you email him that says, you know, how he's managing his inbox. So I think it's a personal preference. One thing I try to be really clear with, with people when I start working with them is, you know, these are my ground rules. And I also want to know their ground rules. You know, what are their boundaries? How do they like to work? Dave Archer asks, how do you deal with text messages, Facebook messages, LinkedIn messages, and carrier pigeons? Well, the carrier pigeons, I just pull a Betty Draper. Anyone laughing? Okay. I'm kidding. I don't actually shoot pigeons. You know, I think, yes, I will share the slides. I think in those individual channels, you know, they are a different level of urgency. For me, my level of urgency hierarchy kind of goes email, text, and then phone call. So email is, so I want to see how it's escalated through those levels. As far as Facebook messages and LinkedIn messages, it depends on how you like to work. If you want to redirect people to your inbox saying, hey, thanks for reaching out to me here. I usually use Facebook messages for personal. So if you could reach out to me or give me your email address, I'd love to connect with you on one of my professional channels. But that's another way of creating a boundary in this space that can help you manage it. But again, sometimes I find it's really situational depending on who the person is and what your relationship with them is to this point. Laura asked, do I get dressed for work every day? I get dressed for work, at least in like real pants. My new house rule is Monday through Thursdays. And on Fridays, I get to wear sweatpants. So it's kind of like Mean Girls. Peter says, I work in an environment where there are deadlines every day, responding to suppliers and customers to avoid holding up others. How do you handle this? So Peter, that reminds me a lot of when I worked in newsrooms, and there was a lot more urgency to responding to messages and making sure things that were handled. And it's a really great question. I think that it's a really great question. What I would start out with is saying, looking at, is there any way possible to batch those emails? So is there any way possible to say, okay, email hours are in the morning, in the middle of the day, and at night, right? So I have 3 periods of checking emails. If it's outside of those times, then we use Microsoft Teams or Slack to say, hey, this is super urgent, it needs attention right now. I think the goal is as much as possible to concentrate your time in your inbox so you can make the most use of it. Jess Duragon? Hi, Jess. When a 5-year-old, boundaries when a 5-year-old is also stuck at home. So I am not a parent. I have a mini schnauzer. He's really cute, but he is not a 5-year-old. So I would defer to parents to give a better answer on that. But what I would say is that if you can try to put some things in place, especially the time blocking, and if you can try to maximize your time in hours when maybe there's a certain time that's nap time, maybe there's a time in the morning that works better. And if you can use those 25 minutes for a really specific purpose, it might help with getting the things done that you need to get done. Okay. Okay. So Becca asks, some of us do have to be available all the time during business hours. What are some of your biggest boundary recommendations when email blocking isn't an available option? I can absolutely understand that situation. I think part of it is, it might be a matter of communicating with a team, and I know the person who's asking this question. So if you're working on a team, it might be a matter of having a conversation internally of, hey, again, these are the times where we're definitely in our inboxes checking email and making sure to respond. If it's another time during this time, let's elevate the conversation to a more immediate form of chat. And sometimes it's a good thing to put something like that in place, even if temporarily, because it forces people to think about what's actually urgent and what's not as urgent as they think that it is. And I think the more clearly you can communicate that and also be flexible with everyone around you and yourself, the more effective it can be to set up a policy like that. Elizabeth asks if I set aside time during the day for aimless browsing. I just downloaded TikTok, which was a mistake. So right now, aimless browsing is kind of at night, honestly. I don't set aside time for aimless browsing, but that's actually not a bad idea to like time block that specific thing. Going from news, Krista asked, going from news where I felt were needed at all times to your current career, what was your biggest surprise? Krista, I don't know if I understand your question. What was the biggest surprise? Oh, going from news when I felt like, got it, okay. So going from news when I felt like I was needed at all times to my current career, what was the biggest surprise and hurdle? That's a really great question. I think part of it was adapting the sense of urgency in a newsroom to the sense of urgency outside of the newsroom, and knowing when to apply it and knowing when to when it was okay to not behave as if it was a breaking news situation. Any more questions, y'all? No. Okay. All right. So, thank you for coming to my NCET TED Talk. Am I allowed to say that? I don't know. All right. So we're going to go back to the slides for a second. Oh, wait. Hold on. I got another question. I'm going to come back. Oh, thank you. Yes, we will make, yes, to Dave's question, we will make the recording available later. Okay, Don's question is, any tips on engaging with other vendors or 1099ers? I would say as a 1099er that these tools are really, really important, and being really clear about how and when you communicate is critical, because you're not in a situation where you can just turn to the person next to you and say, hey, can you look at this thing? Or hey, can you jump on this call? Or hey, can you do this? So you have to be much more explicit in how you communicate and what your expectations are. So I would say the more clarity and the sooner you can communicate is better. Oh, thanks everyone. Thanks for the kind comments. Okay, so 2 more final slides. Okay, so let's connect distantly, of course. This is where you can find me on the interwebs, so you can email me, but you know how I deal with email now. You can tweet at me, you can Facebook me, you can find me on LinkedIn. I am also on Instagram, but it's pretty much just pictures of my dog. So if you like cute schnauzer pics, I'm pretty much Annie Flanz everywhere. And I will post this presentation at this URL. So you're going to want to go to flanzrights.com/work-from-home-resources. But give me a second to make sure that file is the correct file up there. So like give me 5 minutes to double check it before you do that. All right. I don't know how to turn this thing off. Oh. Oh, guys, this is like really fun. Thank you for joining me. I feel really honored that you would spend time with me like this. All right, so thank you everyone. Thank you for your time. We will figure out how to get this recording out to everyone and also how to get the slides out. Thank you for your patience, since this is I think the first NCET live session that we're doing like this. And make sure to tune in next week. Estepona Group is going to come on board and give some killer work from home recommendations, and they are an agency that has lived that remote life forever. So I can't wait to hear what that team is going to send out and what tips they're going to give. So make sure to like NCET on Facebook and subscribe, and look for a notification about their event next week. All right, goodbye everybody. Have a great day.